بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون. الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل
واللعنة
فرجهم.
الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Dear brothers and sisters in Iman, as I had announced last night, that inshallah from tonight in these 6 lectures, I'll be, with the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I would be focusing on the Shi'i perspective on the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, and his wives and his Ahlul Bayt. There is much in common among the Shias and the Sunnis in the Muslim world when it comes to the issue of Tawheed and Nubuwwat, especially the emphasis that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the last of all the prophets, and also in the concept of Qiyamah and the life in hereafter. These are the fundamental concepts for identifying a person as a Muslim. So in the basics of these 3 concepts, there is no dispute among the Shias and the Sunnis. The main point of contention is the issue of the succession to the Prophet of Islam. And as a byproduct of that dispute, we see the difference in the perspective of the 2 schools of thought on the issue of Sahaba, as well as on the issue of the wives of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt of the Prophet. The issue of Sahaba and the companions is the main point of dispute among the Shias and the Sunnis, to the extent that if you look at the writings of Allama Marhum Sayyid Murtaza Askari, he has very rightly described the 2 schools of thoughts by using the terms Maktab al-Sahaba wa Maktab Ahlul Bayt. Means the Shi'i perspective is the Maktab of Ahlul Bayt, school of Ahlul Bayt, whereas the Sunni perspective is Maktab al-Sahaba. It is a school based on the opinions of the Sahaba. Let me, in a very preamble here, make it clear that we believe in the importance of unity among Muslims. This is a given. However, unity does not mean merging the 2 schools of thoughts, because that is not a possibility. You will still have the Shias and the Sunnis, and if you try to merge up, you will come with a 3rd division. So it's not really a unity. When we talk about merging, this is not unity, this is more further division. Unity means to celebrate the common points and respectfully disagree on points of contention and unite with one another in facing common problems and challenges of our own times, especially when we look at the Muslims in the United States of America and in Canada. Unity does not mean that we should not discuss the controversial issues. We need to have very clear understanding on both sides. However, our discussion on these controversial issues should be done in a civil manner without using any abusive language or style. The clarity of our belief is required, especially in the context of the recent events unfolding in Pakistan, where Sahabiyyat, the status of the companions, is being used as a measure of iman and kufr, faith and disbelief. And so it's important for us to educate ourselves as well as, our Sunni brothers and sisters to understand what is our proper understanding about the Sahaba. Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Tonight I'll handle only two issues. Number one, who is a Sahabi? And number two, we will look at this perspective of what is the status of the Sahabi. When we talk about the definition of a Sahabi, companion of the Prophet, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, a very prominent writer of the biography of the Sahaba of the Prophet, in his book Al-Isaba fi Tamyiz al-Sahaba, he says, Sahabi is the one who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a believer and died as a believer. It doesn't matter whether his meeting was long or short, whether he narrated a hadith from him or not, whether he fought alongside him or not. And this includes those who were with the Prophet, they just saw him, but they were not able to see him because of their physical, disability. For example, if some person was there, but he was blind, he didn't saw the Prophet, but still he will be considered as a Sahabi. From the Shi'i point of view, we define Sahabi in a very simple words. Anyone who met the Prophet as a believer and died as a Muslim is a Sahabi. This is according to our famous scholar known as Shahid Thani in his book Al-Ri'aya fi Ilm al-Diraya. When it comes to the definition of a Sahabi, there is not much of an issue here. The main difference between the two schools of thought is on the status of the Sahabi. What is their status? When we look at the Sunni perspective, they believe that all the Sahaba, more than 100,000 of them, are udul. Udul is plural of adil, which means they are upright in character and they are the source of the religious teachings. For example, if you look at the writing of Ibn al-Athir, known as Usdul Ghaba, which is again a biography of the Sahaba, right in the beginning he says, and for the sake of time, I will leave the Arabic writings here, just present to you the actual translation, where Ibn al-Athir says the details of the rules and the knowledge of halal and haram in the matters of religion depends on the sunnah of the Prophet. And that can only be proven by knowing the narrators. And the first ones and the most foremost among them are the companions of the Prophet. أولها والمقدم عليهم أصحاب رسول الله. Then he says, and the companions are equal to other narrators in the matters of narrating, except when it comes to the scrutinizing their testimony, the Sahaba are above the other narrators. Why? Because all of them are udul. They are upright in character. No criticism can be applied to any Sahabi. So just because a person is a Sahabi, we have to accept him as an adil and accept his words about the Prophet. Another scholar by the name of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he says, اتفق أهل السنة على أن الجميع عدول. He says the Ahl Sunnah are unanimous in the belief that all of the Sahaba are adil. They are just, upright. ولم يخالف في ذلك إلا الشذوذ. He says, none opposes this view except very fringe element from the innovators. And the last quotation on this issue is from Ibn Hazm al-Andalusi in his book Al-Isaba, where he says, الصحابة كلهم من أهل الجنة قطعا. MashaAllah. He says the Sahaba, all of them, are from the people of paradise for sure. So what we see is that from the perspective of the Sunni Muslims, all the companions in thousands are adil. They are upright in their character and they are Ahlul Jannah. The Jannah, the paradise has been guaranteed for them. The implication of this belief is very serious, because when we hear these words, then we would ask them that, do you believe that the Sahaba, thousands of them, are ma'soom and infallible? Because when we say we have 14 ma'soomin, they have problems with this. They say you do ghulub, you are exaggerating. Well, what is this? When you say that thousands of the companions of the Prophet, all of them are adil, we are not allowed to question anything about them, and they are Ahlul Jannah, Jannah is guaranteed for them. They say, no, we do not say that they are ma'soom. They would say that, yes, they can commit mistakes, but then the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah will justify their mistakes under this formula known as khata ijtihadi, which means a mistake done in their ijtihad, means that in their process of analyzing issues, and then coming to the conclusion. So for example, basically what they are saying, that all the Sahaba were mujtahid in their own right, and whatever they did was based on their own personal ijtihad. However, the conclusion of their ijtihad could be right or it could be wrong. But in both cases, their intentions are pure, therefore we are not allowed to criticize them. And it's amazing that you can question their judgment, but you are not allowed to question their intention and their motives. So for example, look at a real example. The Battle of Jamal. On one hand, you have Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. On the other hand, you had people like Talha and Zubair and Aisha. All of them were Sahaba. They fought against one another. In this case, according to the Sunni perspective, all of them did ijtihad. However, the ijtihad of Ali was correct, while the ijtihad of others were wrong. It was an ijtihadi mistake, but they had good intentions, mashallah. With this good intention, the result was that 15,000 Muslims were killed in the Battle of Jamal. So when you think about it from the logical and rational point of view, this idea really doesn't sink as far as, logic and rationality is concerned. Salawat. So let us look at the Shi'i perspective. What is the Shi'i view about the status of the Sahaba? I would like to quote a very prominent alim among in the Shia world, known as Ash-Shahid al-Thani, whose textbooks are even used now, although he lived around after 7th century of the Hijrah calendar, but his textbooks are even used now in the houses for jurisprudence. And he says very clearly, where he says that, as-sahaba ala maratibin kathira. He says the Sahaba, there are many levels among them. It depends on their precedence in Islam, in Hijrat, in being with the Prophet, fighting with him, being killed under his banner, or in narrating from him and from talking and seeing and walking with him. So he says the Sahaba are at different levels, even though all of them are together when it comes to the honor of sahabiyyat and companionship. However, this is the main difference between us and the Sunni perspective. He says, حُكْمُهُ عِنْدَنَا فِي الْعَدَالَةِ حُكْمُ غَيْرِهِمْ. Our judgment about their adalat is same as other Muslims, even those who came after them and centuries after them. And this is where we realize that from the Shi'i point of view, to be a Sahabi is an honor, but it does not automatically translate into being adil and upright in character. In other words, from the Shi'i point of view, to be a companion does not accord them any special status of adalat because of companionship. It's not that a Muslim who saw the Prophet only once or came into the presence of the Prophet only once, as if there was a telepathic transformation in the Sahabi that he or she becomes adil automatically. No, there was nothing like that. Adalat is a virtue. It is a fazilat and a sifat which is acquired by the person by doing good actions. It is a mindset based on taqwa and righteousness that you have to build within yourself, and it should reflect in your deeds. It is a quality which can also be lost, and you can also regain it. You know, sometimes people are adil, but they might do something, a major sin, and their adalat would be gone. But if they sincerely repent and reform themselves, then their adalat will come back to them. And so we do not believe that, just by looking at the Prophet, there was a telepathic transformation taking place among the thousands of Sahaba and they automatically become adil. No. We believe that Sahaba were just like other Muslims who came later on. All the rules of Islam equally applied upon them when it came to wajibat and muharramat. All the obligations and prohibitions were applicable on them. All the laws of crime and punishment were equally applicable on them. And therefore, from the Shi'i point of view, when it comes to the Sahaba, we believe that we should study each Sahabi's life and actions individually. And for example, if we see that a Sahabi was steadfast in his aqidah, upright in his character, then no doubt such a Sahabi will be a role model for us. We will salute such Sahaba, try to emulate their example. The companions like Salman al-Farsi, Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, Ammar bin Yasir, Miqdad bin Aswad, and many, many other men. Among women, Salama, Asma bint Umays, Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, Fatima bint Asad. All these are the Sahabiyat who are role model and examples for us. But when we study the lives of the Sahaba, and if we see that they were not steadfast in their aqidah, not upright in their character, then they are definitely not role models for us. We do not have to salute them. And this is the Shi'i perspective. So my brothers and sisters, anyone says that Shias don't believe in the Sahaba doesn't understand Shiaism. This would be just half truth. We believe in the Sahaba, we honor them, we respect them, but we don't believe all of them were adil. We scrutinize the life and biography and actions of each one of them. Then we make the decision whether he is a role model for us or he is not a role model for us. Salawat padne par. And so now we have two different perspectives here. The Shi'i perspective and the Sunni perspective about the status of the Sahaba. The best thing is to go to the Quran and see which of these two views are in line with the teachings of the Quran. And tonight I'll give you only 3 examples from the Quran. Number 1, when you talk about Sahaba, which those who had seen the Prophet even once, even if they had not narrated anything from him, they did not hear anything from him, they did not do jihad with him, as long as they say, they died as Muslims, they are Sahabi. The question is, can we say that all those who were around Rasulullah in Medina, they were all pure believers? What about the issue of munafiqeen? What about the hypocrites? And in Medina I'm talking about. And I'll give you just only one ayat from Surah Tawbah, Surah number 9, ayat 101. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِمَّنْ حَوْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْعَرَابِ مُنَافِقُونَ. He says, remember, those who are around you, around the city of Medina in the desert, Al-A'rab means the Bedouins. So they are among you, the Bedouins, among them, they are munafiqun, they are hypocrites among them. Not only outside Medina, وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ, even the people of Medina, among them, they are munafiqun. Maradu ala nifaq, they are steeped in hypocrisy. لا تعلمهم, O Muhammad, you don't know them. نحن نعلمهم. Allah says, we know them. ونعذبهم مرتين ثم يردون إلى عذاب عظيم. We will punish them twice. and then we will, consign them to a great punishment. This Surah Tawbah was not revealed during the early days. This was revealed just about 2.5 years before the demise of the Prophet, in the 9th year. And so this is a later surahs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there are munafiqeen in the desert among the Bedouins, as well as there are munafiqeen min ahlil Medina. And so don't tell me that anyone who saw Rasulullah and has this title of Sahabi automatically becomes pure an example for us. No, there were also munafiqeen inside Medina who are known as the Sahaba. The second example is the issue of the fasiqeen. Fasiq means a sinful person, a person who openly commits sin. And a fasiq is opposite of adil. And our contention here is that we do not believe that the Sahaba, just because of being a Sahabi, is an adil. No, it's not automatically, quality acquired by being in the companionship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And for this, I will go to surah number 32, Surah Al-Sajda, ayat 18. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مُؤْمِنًا كَمَنْ كَانَ فَاسِقًا لَا يَسْتَوُونَ. Is someone who is faithful, mu'min, can he be like someone who is transgressor, who is a sinful, fasiq? لا يستوون. They are not equal. They are not on the same level. Suyuti in his, is a Sunni scholar, in his Tafsir ad-Durr al-Manthur, has many narrations where he says that this ayat was revealed when a Sahabi by the name of Walid bin Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, a foster brother of Uthman, was bragging about himself against Amir al-Mu'minin Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. And according to Suyuti, the words mu'min in this ayat refers to Ali alayhi salam, and the words fasiq in this ayat refers to Walid bin Uqba. Now, this is not the only ayat which describes Walid bin Uqba as fasiq. You can go to Surah number 49, ayat 6, Surah Al-Hujarat. There also you will see, and that ayat was revealed in the context when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam appointed Walid bin Uqba as one of the revenue officers, to go as zakat collectors. And he was sent to a tribe outside Medina to go and collect zakat from them. Now, the problem was that when Walid bin Uqba went to that area where this tribe lived, before Islam, there was a dispute between that tribe and Walid bin Uqba. And so when they found out that Rasulullah is sending him as a zakat collector, although he was our enemy in the past, they, as a gesture of goodwill, decided to come out in large number from their dwellings to welcome Walid bin Uqba. Walid bin Uqba, when he saw them from far, he thought that because of our past animosity and dispute, maybe they have come here to attack me. So he doesn't even go to them. He just turns around from that area, goes to Medina, goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says that this tribe refused to pay zakat. Now, this is a very serious accusation. If a messenger is coming from Rasulullah and you as a Muslim refuse to pay zakat, it is as if like you are becoming a murtab in a way, not technically, but you are rebelling against Rasulullah. And Rasul, if he had taken this seriously, he could even have sent an army, to punish that tribe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayat, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. O you who believe, when a fasiq, a sinful person comes to you with a news, do not just accept it. Tabayyanu. Fatabayyanu means investigate about it. Get it verified. before you act on it, because if you act in this false report, you might harm a community unknowingly, and then you will regret later on. And so we see that in two places, Walid bin Uqba, a Sahabi, who was also a zakat collector in the administration of Rasulullah, is being described as a fasiq. And a fasiq cannot be adil. And so this is one very clear example that according to Quran, a Sahabi can be adil or can be fasiq. There is no automatic, growth of this quality of adalat when a person becomes a Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajjal farajah.
Let me give third example, the last one for tonight. That among the Sahaba, there were many who actually made wrong choices. Every Friday, once a week, Muslims for centuries are being reminded of the wrong priorities and wrong choices made by the Sahaba when they preferred entertainment and business over Jummah prayers. If you go to Jummah prayer, the Imam is reciting Surah Al-Jummah, you will see after the ayat which says, when the call is made for the Friday prayer, leave your business and trade and go for salat. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last ayat there says, وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً أَوْ لَحْوًا فَضُّوا إِلَيْهَا. When they see, referring to a specific event about the Sahaba, that when they see business and entertainment, they run towards it. وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا. And O Muhammad, they left you standing on the minbar of Jummah khutbah. قُلْ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِّنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ. O Muhammad, say to them that what Allah has is better than entertainment and the business that you're looking for. وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. He is the best of providers. Again, Suyuti, in his Ad-Durr al-Mansur, under this ayat of Surah Jummah, just one narration here I'll quote to you, where Abdullah ibn Abbas says, وَتَرَكُوا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ وَسَلَّمْ قَائِمًا عَلَى الْمِنْبَرِ. When the khutbah was going on, Jummah khutbah of Rasulullah, a trade caravan came into the city. And when they come in, they announce their arrival by beating the drums. So when the sound of the drums came into the masjid, majority of the Sahaba left Rasulullah, taraku Rasulullah, qa'iman ala al-mimbar, while he was sitting on the mimbar delivering the Friday khutbah. وَبَقِيَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ 12 رَجُلًا وَسَبْعَ نِسْوَةً. And the only people left in the masjid were 12 men and 9 women. The rest had gone. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. At that moment, Rasulullah said, وَلَوْ خَرَجُوا كُلُّهُمْ. If all of these people had left me alone here, لَاسْتَرَمَ الْمَسْجِدَ عَلَيْهُمْ نَارًا. This masjid would have actually shot fire towards them. Azab would have descended upon them in Medina. So these three examples from the Quran are sufficient to show that this idea of automatic adalat for the companions is not supported by the Quran. And so we don't, agree with this blanket glorification of the Sahaba just because they were Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We study and evaluate each Sahabi individually. And if we find him to be steadfast in his beliefs and practice, then we salute him and consider him to be a role model for ourselves. Otherwise, we don't accord them any special honor or status. Let me just give you one example of this situation. Ek bar salawat padhne, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah.
Look at the example of the Battle of Jamal. There was a person there in the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen by the name of Al-Haras bin Hut al-Laythi or Al-Harith bin Hut al-Laythi. There are two different ways of writing his name in history. He was very confused by the situation of the Battle of Jamal. And I don't blame him. Any ordinary Muslim in that situation would be confused. And he came to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he said, أترى أن طلحة والزبير وعائشة على باطل? He says, do you think that Talha and Zubair and Aisha are on the wrong side of the issues here? Haris al-Laythi, when he looked around, when he looked at the leadership on the both sides, he saw there are Sahaba and Muhajirin on both sides. On one hand, you had the cousin of the Prophet, the son-in-law of the Prophet. On the other hand, you have another cousin of the Prophet, Zubair. Zubair was the son of the aunt of Rasulullah, Pupizad cousin tha wo. And then Talha is a Sahabi also. And then you have the wife of the Prophet, Aisha. And so he was confused. There are Sahaba here, there are Sahaba here. Members from the Prophet's family on this side, members from the Prophet's family on the other side. And this is very important. We don't even go just by the issue of the family relationships here. And so when he came to Amir al-Mu'mineen to get some clarity on this issue, the answer that Ali ibn Abi Talib gave is actually our belief about Sahaba. Ali said, Ya Harith, anta malbusun alayk. O Haris, you are indeed confused. إن الحق والباطل لا يعرفان بأقدار الرجال وبأعمال الظن. Verily the truth and the falsehood cannot be known by the status of the people and by exercising supposition and assumptions. You cannot know haqq and batil by the status and the positions of the individuals. Rather, he says, اعرف الحق تعرف أهله. Recognize what is the truth, and then you will know who are the followers of the truth. اعرف الباطل تعرف أهله. Identify what is falsehood, recognize what is falsehood, and you will know who are the followers of the falsehood. And so we have to know what is haqq and batil. You cannot know haqq and batil by personalities. You have to judge the personalities on the standard of what is haqq and what is batil. Salawat padne ek baar. Of course, there are some individuals who are so great that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them the standard of haqq and batil. There is a narration by Al-Badakhshi in his book Tuhfat al-Muhibbin bi Munaqib al-Khulafa al-Rashidin. And in the section of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, and narration is from Ammar and Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, two companions, where they are saying, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet said, Ya Ammar, in ra'ayta aliyan qad salaka wadiyan wa salaka an-nas wadiyan ghayruh. O Ammar, if you see one day that Ali is going towards one valley, and the rest of the people and the rest of the ummah is going into another valley, فَاسْلُكْ مَا عَلِيٍّ وَدَعِ النَّاسِ. O Ammar, then go with Ali and leave the ummah and the majority on the other side. Why? فَإِنَّهُ لَنْ يَدُلُّكُ عَلَى رِدًا. Because Ali will never take you towards misguidance. وَلَنْ يُخْرِجُكَ مِنَ الْهُدَى. And he will never take you out of guidance. Salawat padne ek baar. According to this narration, Ali becomes the measure of haqq and batil. So even if the majority is going on one side and Ali is alone, the Prophet says, follow Ali. And this is where we have to realize, very similar to the words where he says, Al-haqqu ma'aliyin wa aliyun ma'al haqq. or Aliyun ma'al haqq wal haqqu ma'aliyin. He doesn't only say that Ali is with Haqq and Haqq is with Ali. Then he prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is by Imam Fakhruddin Razi, a Sunni Mufassir, in his book, where he says that the Prophet then did the dua that, oh Allah, turn Haqq in whatever direction that Ali is turning. So it's not that, oh Allah, turn Ali towards Haqq, or rather turn Haqq in the direction that Ali ibn Abi Talib is turning. And so we have very clear guidance from Rasulullah about this issue. And Sahabiyyat, yes, it is an honor, provided there is steadfastness in Aqidah and as well as in Amal. Salawat padhne ek baar aur.
اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد وجل.
امیر المومنین کی عظمت کا اگر اندازہ لگانا ہو کہ امیر المومنین نے جنگ جمل میں جناب عائشہ کے ساتھ کیا سلوک کیا تھا. And that is an example for us. When we say that Ali is our Imam and he is our guide, ہمارا جو انٹریکشن دوسروں کے ساتھ جو ہوتا ہے اور صحابہ کے ساتھ جو ہمارا رویہ ہے، ٹھیک ہے ہم انہیں عادل نہیں مانتے ہیں، لیکن ہمارا ایک معیار ہونا چاہیے. We should actually act at a higher level of morality and ethics. And this is the example you will see from Amir al-Mu'mineen. جنگ جب امیر المومنین جنگ جمل میں جیت جاتے ہیں، محمد بن ابی بکر کو بلایا جو عائشہ کے اسٹیپ بردر ہوتے ہیں، اور ان سے کہا کہ جاؤ عائشہ کے بارے میں ذرا خیریت معلوم کرو. سلھا هل وصل الیہ شیء من الرماح والسحام، کہ تیر یا نیزے میں سے کوئی زخم تو نہیں لگا انہیں. محمد بن ابی بکر گئے اور اپنے بہن سے پوچھا تو وہ جواب دیتی ہیں کہ ایک تیر جو ہے صرف ایک خراش ہمارے سر پر لگ گئی ہے، لیکن خدا نے مجھے محفوظ رکھا ہے، اور خدا جو ہے ہمارے اور تمہارے درمیان قیامت میں فیصلہ کرے گا. جس پر محمد بن ابی بکر نے کہا کہ یقیناً خداوند عالم تمہارے خلاف فیصلہ کرے گا تمہارے اور امیر المومنین کے درمیان، اس لیے کہ آپ نے خروج کیا ہے ان کے خلاف، لوگوں کو بھڑکایا ہے علی کے خلاف لڑنے کے لیے، اور آپ نے کتاب خدا کو چھوڑ دیا ہے. اس لیے حکم یہ ہے کہ آپ گھر پہ بیٹھتی، یہاں آنے کی ضرورت نہیں تھی. لیکن بہرحال یہ بھائی بہن کی بات ہے، اس میں ہم کچھ تبصرہ نہیں کریں گے. آخر میں امیر المومنین نے محمد بن ابی بکر سے کہا کہ اپنی بہن کو لے کے جاؤ عبداللہ بن خلف کے گھر، وہاں خیریت سے رہیں until I decide what to do with her. آخر میں فیصلہ سنیں آپ، یعنی وہ خاتون جو ایک لحاظ سے امیر المومنین کے خلاف لشکر لے آتی ہیں، کم سے کم ان کے مورال کو بڑھاتی ہیں، and she supports طلحہ and زبیر، اور اس جنگ کی وجہ سے 15,000 مسلمان قتل ہو جاتے ہیں. لیکن چونکہ یہ رسول اللہ کی زوجہ ہیں، رسول اسلام کی زوجہ کی حیثیت سے پھر امیر المؤمنین نے فیصلہ کیا کہ انہیں جو ہے خیریت سلامتی کے ساتھ مدینہ واپس بھیج دیں. امیر المؤمنین نے 40 خواتین کو بلایا. اس سے اندازہ ہوتا ہے کہ بہت کچھ ہے اس زمانے کے بارے میں جو ہم نہیں جانتے ہیں. یقیناً ایک کنٹینجنسی پلاننگ ہمیشہ رہی ہوگی کہ کبھی اگر جنگ میں ضرورت پڑے تو خواتین بھی آگے آ سکتی ہیں who can actually even carry arms. تو 40 خواتین کو بلاتے ہیں امیر المومنین اور کہتے ہیں کہ تم امامہ پہنو اور ہیملٹ پہنو، ٹوپی پہنو سپاہیوں کی، اور اپنے کمر میں جو ہے کمر بند میں تلوار لگاؤ، اور انہیں لے کے جانا عائشہ کو اپنی حفاظت میں، ان کے رائٹ کی طرف رائٹ سائڈ رہنا، لیفٹ رہنا، پیچھے بھی رہنا ان کی حفاظت کے لیے. اور وہ ظاہراً شکل میں جو مرد لگ رہی تھی، وہ پورے سفر میں، یہ شیخ مفید کی روایت ہے کتاب الجمل میں، لکھتے ہیں کہ اس پورے سفر میں جناب عائشہ امیر المومنین کی برائی کرتی رہیں کہ خداوندہ علی کا حساب لینا انہوں نے مردوں کے حوالے مجھ میں کر کے ہمیں بھیج دیا ہے اور رسول اللہ کی حرمت کا پاس نہیں رکھا ہے. یہ جملہ ذہن میں رکھے. مدینہ جب پہنچے ہیں یہ لوگ، یہ 40 سپاہ جو ہیں یہ عائشہ کے ساتھ گھر اندر آ جاتے ہیں. اندر آنے کے بعد انہوں نے جب اپنی کلاه اور اپنی ٹوپی کو نکالا ہے تب ان کے بال کھلے. تب عائشہ کو اندازہ ہوا کہ یہ مرد نہیں تھے، یہ خواتین تھی فوجی لباس میں. ظاہری طور پہ مرد لگ رہی تھی لیکن وہ مرد نہیں تھی. اس وقت شرمندگی اور ندامت کے ساتھ کہتی ہیں جزا اللہ ابن ابی طالب خیرا، خداوند عالم ابو طالب کے بیٹے کو جزائے خیر دے. فقد حفظ فی حرمت رسول اللہ، اس لیے کہ علی نے میرے سلسلے میں حرمت رسول اللہ کا خیال رکھا. دیکھیے آل ابی طالب میں اور آل ابی سفیان میں آسمان و زمین کا فرق ہے. اقدار بالکل بدلے ہوئے ہیں. علی ابن ابی طالب نے اس جنگ کے باوجود جو سلوک عائشہ کے ساتھ کیا ہے اس لیے کیا ہے کہ یہ رسول اللہ کی زوجہ ہیں. حرمت رسول کا پاس رکھا ان تمام خرابیوں کے باوجود. لیکن یہ اصحاب کے اولاد نے آل رسول کے ساتھ کیا کیا؟ کیا انہوں نے رسول اللہ کی حرمت کا پاس رکھا تھا؟ اور یہ صرف صحابہ کے اولاد نہیں تھے، یہ وہ لوگ تھے جو آل ابی سفیان کے اثر میں رہے ہیں. جو سلوک آپ دیکھتے ہیں جو انہوں نے کیا ہے. بس ایک جملے پہ ہم مصائب کو شروع کرنا چاہیں گے عزیزان حسین، کہ امام سجاد جب واپس آئے ہیں مدینہ میں اور مدینہ والوں سے جب ملاقات ہوئی ہے، امام سجاد کا جو اس وقت خطبہ ہے، جو تقریر کی ہے امام نے، خیمہ لگا ہوا تھا، بیٹھے تھے، اور جب سب لوگ آئے ہیں مدینہ والے، ایک جملہ فرماتے ہیں اس میں واللہ لو ان النبی تقدم الیہم فی قتالنا کما تقدم الیہم فی الوصایا بنا. فرماتے ہیں خدا کی قسم اگر میرے جد نبی نے امت سے یہ سفارش کی ہوتی کہ میرے اہل بیت کو قتل کرو، ان سے لڑنا اور ان سے جنگ کرنا، نہ یہ کہ جو انہوں نے وصیتیں کی ہیں کہ ان کا خیال رکھنا. صحیح مسلم میں ہے کہ 3 بار فرماتے ہیں کہ ہم اہل بیت کے سلسلے میں تم سے پوچھیں گے، تم خیال رکھنا میرے اہل بیت کے بارے میں. امام سجاد فرماتے ہیں کہ اگر رسول اللہ نے حکم دیا ہوتا کہ میرے اہل بیت کے ساتھ جنگ لڑنا اور انہیں اذیت پہنچانا، لما زادوا علی ما فعلوا بنا، تم اس سے زیادہ کچھ نہیں کر سکتے تھے جو تم نے کیا ہے. یعنی انتہا کر دیے تم لوگوں نے. فَإِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّ إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. امام سجاد سے جب بھی پوچھا جاتا تھا کہ مولا سب سے زیادہ اذیت آپ کو کہاں ہوئی ہے، امام نے عاشور کے دن کا ذکر نہیں کیا ہے، اپنے بھائیوں کی شہادت کا ذکر نہیں کیا ہے، اصغر اور اکبر کی بات نہیں کی ہے، قاسم کے بدن کے پامالی کا ذکر نہیں کیا ہے، بابا کے لاش کی پامالی کا ذکر نہیں کیا ہے. بس ہمیشہ کہتے تھے الشام الشام الشام. شام کے مناظر کو امام کبھی بھی بھول نہ سکے. عزیزان حسین، جس طرح سے یہ قافلہ روکا گیا ہے دروازے دمشق پہ، اور جو اہتمام کیا جا رہا تھا کہ کس طرح سے ان کو وارد کیا جائے، وہ محملے جس پر پردہ کا انتظام نہ تھا، وہ بیبیاں جن کے چہرے پر نقاب نہیں تھا، ہر شخص چاہے وہ عزیز ہو یا ذلیل ہو آ کے دیکھتا تھا، بار بار ان لوگوں کے چہرے کی طرف نظر دوڑاتا تھا. امام ان مناظر کو کبھی بھی نہیں بھول سکتے ہیں. ایک ضعیف شامی آتا ہے، کہتا ہے کہ خدا کا شکر ہے کہ خدا نے ہمارے امیر کو فتح دی اور آپ لوگوں کو ذلیل کیا ہے۔ امام نے بیٹھ کی کچھ آیتیں اس کے سامنے تلاوت کی ہے، جس میں سے ایک آیت مودت تھی۔ کہا تم نے اس آیت کو پڑھا؟ اس نے کہا یقیناً پڑھا ہے۔ کہا اس میں جو قربا کا ذکر ہے، ہم ہی وہ قرابت دار رسول ہے۔ آخر میں وہ نادم ہوتا ہے، یزید پر لعنت کرتا ہے، اور یزیدی کے سپاہیوں نے اس شامی ضعیف کو جو ہے وہیں پہ قتل کر دیتے ہیں۔ عزاداران حسین، جب یہ قافلہ وارد ہونے لگا شہر دمشق میں، شمر ملعون نے حکم دیا ہے ان سپاہیوں کے جس کے ہاتھ میں نیزے تھے، جن پر سرائے شہداء تھے، وہ حکم دیتا ہے کہ تم اور قریب جاؤ، اہل حرم کی جو محملیں ہیں ان میں ڈسپرس ہو جاؤ۔ اس لیے کہ وہ جانتا تھا کہ مجمع جب ان سروں کو دیکھے گا، یہ کوئی روزانہ کا منظر نہیں ہوتا ہے، ان کی توجہ جو ہے سرہائے شہداء کی طرف جائے گی۔ لیکن یہ شمر ملعون چاہتا تھا کہ لوگ جو ہے زینب ام کلثوم کے چہرے کی طرف دیکھے۔ اس خبیث کے خواہش تھی کہ وہ اذیت پہنچائے اہل حرم کو، لہٰذا ان نیزے داروں کو حکم دیتا ہے کہ وہ محملوں کے آس پاس آ جائیں۔ عزاداران حسین، جب ام کلثوم نے اس منظر کو دیکھا ہے، وہ آگے بڑھتی ہیں، شمر کے سامنے ایک التجا پیش کرتی ہے۔ ہائے وہ دن آ گیا تھا کہ فاطمہ کی بیٹی شمر ملعون کے سامنے ہاتھ جوڑتی ہے، شمر ان سپاہیوں سے کہہ دو نیزے کو لے کے آگے بڑھ جائے، تاکہ مجمع کی نظر جو ہے ہم لوگوں کی طرف نہ جائے۔ لیکن اس خبیث نے کچھ نہ سنا۔ ایک روایت ملتی ہے کہ رسول کے ایک صحابی سہل بن سعد الساعدی اسی دن بیت المقدس سے دمشق پہنچے تھے۔ انہوں نے جب ازدحام دیکھا، وہ وہاں قریب آتے ہیں، پوچھتے ہیں کہ کیا یہاں شامیوں کے درمیان آج کوئی عید کا دن ہے؟ جب بتایا گیا کہ نہیں، کوئی جس نے خروج کیا تھا خلیفہ کے خلاف، اس کا سر لایا جا رہا ہے۔ جب قریب جاتے ہیں، پوچھتے ہیں، معلوم ہوا کہ یہ حسین اور حسین کے گھر والوں کا سر ہے۔ ان کی گھر والوں کو اسیر القیدی بنا کے لایا گیا ہے۔ اور قریب جاتے ہیں، جب اہل حرم کے قریب گئے، ایک 4 سال کی بچی نظر آتی ہے، اسے آواز دیتے ہیں، قریب آؤ ہے بیٹی۔ کہتے ہیں کہ ہم تمہارے جد رسول اللہ کے صحابی ہیں، اگر کچھ ہو سکتا ہے مجھ سے تو بتاؤ۔ سکینہ اس کم سنی کو دیکھے اور اس مظلومیت کو آپ دیکھیں کہ مسلمانوں نے رسول اللہ کی حرمت کا پاس نہ رکھا۔ سکینہ اپنی کم سنی کے باوجود اپنی پھوپھی کی اذیت کو محسوس کرتی ہے، کہتی ہے اے میرے جد کے صحابی، اگر ممکن ہو ان سپاہیوں سے کہہ دو کہ وہ آگے بڑھ جائے، تاکہ زینب و ام کلثوم ہماری پھوپھیوں کو اتنی اذیت نہ ہو۔ عزاداران حسین، غالباً اسی وقت ہے جب حسین کا سر جو ہے تلاوت سورہ کہف شروع کر دیتا ہے۔ عجب نہیں کہ حسین نے جب اس اذیت سکینہ کو دیکھا ہے، اس وقت تلاوت شروع کر دی ہے، تاکہ لوگوں کی توجہ حسین کے سر کی طرف جائے اور لوگ زینب ام کلثوم اور فاطمہ رباب کے چہرے کی طرف نظر اٹھائے۔ الا لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین، سیعلم الذین ظلموا ای منقلب ینقلبون۔ خداوند اس قلبات قبول فرما، ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے، ہماری توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما۔ خداوند شیعان علی جہاں بھی ہیں، خصوصاً ایام 40 میں، خداوند ان کو اپنے حفظ امان میں رکھ، تکفیر افواج کی تمام صلاحیتوں کو نیست و نابود فرما، امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما، تمام انسانوں کو کرونا وائرس کی اس مصیبت سے نجات دے۔ ربنا آتنا فی الدنیا حسنۃ وفی الآخرۃ حسنۃ وقنا عذاب النار انک انت السمیع العلیم۔ ماتم حسین۔